when I met Ram Dass and began spending my time with him is when the universe just became undeniably and suspiciously strange. There is this weird orbit that happens when you are in the be here nowosphere. Lots of people are just in this gravity. And one of these people that I met must have been 2016, was Bob Thurman. Bob Thurman is the first Westerner to be initiated into the Tibetan lineage. I mean, the Dalai Lama himself handed him his robes and accepted him as a disciple. This is a person that lived a very interesting life, a scholar, and not only a scholar, but a very sneaky bodhisattva that took the form of a scholar and took the form as a friend and took the form of Bob Thurman as a way to just gently remind us of our inner Buddha nature. And he passed away a couple nights ago. And, this is life. The flow, the sun goes up, the sun goes down, the breath goes in, the breath goes out, and night, day, and life and death. And here we are in the spinning circle of it all. And I did a podcast with Bob just about a month ago or so. And I want to share that here with you. And wow. Some people just come into your life and it just feels like not an accident. So I just want to give an honor to my friend and to such a great teacher and a great human being and such a big energy, Bob Thurman. And there's nothing else to say. To infinity and beyond. You'll love this talk. We talk about Ram Dass and we talk about the bardos. We talk about God. We talk about the afterlife. What is life? What is death? We go over these topics in this conversation. And so let's cue the music to the Flowerhead Show, and we will honor together the mystery of this life, of this death. What does it all mean? Why is there something instead of nothing? And Bob, thank you for being a pillar and focal point to remember the mystery. The Flowerhead Show. Flowerhead Show.
Hello, it's the Flowerhead Show. Hi-ro, hi-ro, for our heads to show. Hi-ro, with your host Dakota. It's the Flowerhead Show. Namaste.
You look more jolly now, actually.
Oh, thank you. You too. Well, you look the exact same.
Well, I didn't have a beard then. That's right. I only recently was allowed to start growing my beard.
I was going to start this podcast by asking you the secrets of the universe, because I know you know them. But I heard you say this one story one time about a yogi who went to meet Brahma with the same kind of questions. Like, can you explain all this to me? Can you start with that story?
He believed in Brahma as the creator. So at the time of Buddha, because this is a Buddhist sutra, so at the time of Buddha, like 2,500 years ago, the Indians believed that Brahma was the creator. Later it's Vishnu and Shiva, the all-powerful one, and blah, blah, blah. But at the Buddha's time, it was Brahma. And so this guy, his name was Kevada. He was a great yogi, master, could go out in his Akashic body and his subtle body and so forth. So after achieving that ability, he finally decided that he finally got to the throne room where Brahma was. And all the other little godlings were around. And then he said, "Oh, great Brahma, I'm so happy now I'm here. And I know you created the world, and I'm so interested because I want to know what was there before you did so." and also how you did it and how it works and all this. So then Brahma says, "Do you know who I am?" He says, "Yeah, I know." Then Brahma recites all his credentials. And he says, "Yes, I know it precisely. That's why I came. I want to find out how it works." And then Brahma, "Well, do you have an appointment?" So Brahma does all this stuff to brush him off, like the Wizard of Oz, actually, amazingly. And so he leaves disappointed after some time. And he's heading back down through, and they have very elaborate 26 different levels of heaven, different heavens and different kinds of heaven. And he goes down through them. And then he hasn't gotten very far at all. He's just like in the anti-spaces or anti-rooms. And Brahma suddenly shows up out there by apparition. And then he's first frightened. He thinks, "Oh, no, I'm leaving. It's all right. You don't have to chase me." Brahma says, "No, I'm not chasing you. I wanted to answer your question." He said, "What do you mean you want to answer my? You just refused to answer my question." And he said, "Well, yeah, because I couldn't answer it in there in front of all these other godlings. Because here's the story. I didn't create it, and I don't know how it works that well. I'm immensely powerful, yes. And I was just the first person who came when this universe started evolving. And I was sitting there wondering where was everybody. And then suddenly, pop, 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 all these other deities came there. And when they saw me, they said, 'Papa, Papa.' And then I said, at first I'm a straight, honest person. I said, 'I'm not your Papa.' Like, we're in this together. So I started saying that. And then they got very freaked out. So after a while, I said, "Okay, okay, I'm Papa. Everything is fine. Don't worry. We'll do it. We'll do well." And so on. So they calmed down. So if I had told you in front of them that this story, they would have freaked out, and I don't have any shrinks up here. So, so that's my answer. Now I'm telling you the story. So now what you should do with your question, go back to the humanoid level on planet Earth in the desire realm, sub-heavenly desire realm, surface of the earth, and ask this guy Shakyamuni Buddha, who's there right now, ask him the question, and I don't know exactly what he'll tell you, but it'll be useful to you, however he answers it. So go do that. And then ask him to do me a favor. And what? Ask him to do you a favor? You're God. So that's okay. I still want him to do me a favor. And so, well, what should I ask him? And it said, "Please ask him to tell the human beings that I'm not omnipotent and I didn't create them. Because I love it when they are doing well and they say, 'Thank God.' I like that. That's fine. I don't mind that worship. When there's horrible things that happen and the children get killed and they're tortured and tormented, I hate them hating me because
Yeah.
they automatically think I did it because they think I'm omnipotent. But the fact is, they have agency, you have agency, and we all created it all together. And I am powerful. I try to help, but I would just like people to be more realistic about it. So then that's the story. And I love telling that story. In an earlier time in my career, in the old days before Amazon destroyed the publishing industry, they used to do book tours, right? And they would send you around to do a book tour when you wrote a book, a mass book. So on those book tours, I would enjoy telling this story in places like Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, you know. And then when I would finish telling the story, there would be this sort of vibration in the audience,
Mm.
and they would wait for a split second, a short second, and then there would be a relaxation feeling in the audience after I didn't get struck by lightning.
Oh, I love it. I love that story.
and and uh, and I think it's really great. And actually, since then, I have a much more forceful thing to say about it
Okay.
because thanks to the Flower Ornament Sutra, which I did a thing of when the translator from Chinese, who was an old friend of mine and a classmate of mine, Tom Cleary, when he died, and he was very disrespected by academics who were annoyed with him because he translated like hundreds of books, and they did 3 pages in one of them. And then this guy did like this huge thing. He was so talented and really he was devoted, reincarnation of some ancient vowed Zen person for sure. But anyway, when he died, and they were rude and wouldn't give him grants, and they had a hard time. But so I said I would read it aloud. So then I did every word, and I bumped into it, and I found out God is okay. I had always disliked him because I grew up I mean, I didn't really go much to this Presbyterian church that my parents frequented, but I did go and I sang because I like to sing. I had a good child soprano voice, and I sang in a choir and so on. But I never liked God because of the crucifix thing, because we're like this God's son, and then he tortures him. And the guy goes, "Why did you forsake me?" I mean, what's nice about that?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's
That didn't make
confusing
sense
at
to me.
first.
It didn't make sense to me. A compassionate being who would have such ability would do this to somebody, particularly his own son. I thought it was really creepy. I didn't really understand how it got to be like that, but I didn't like it. So, but then I realized that that's just the state that did it. The Romans twisted Jesus's teaching very badly to connect it to the power of Caesar and make it inferior to the power of Caesar. And then they splattered from the time of Constantine. I discovered, after later scholarship, that until the time of Constantine, which is around 300, 325 was the Council of Nicaea under him. And I think around a little before 300, he became the emperor and so on. And then he decided to use Christianity to unify the empire, which had very much fallen apart by then. And in doing that, he wanted to put it in a subordinate position. So therefore, he went and he sent his mother to Jerusalem. They dug up some crucifix, and they said that's the one, and then everybody should worship it, because when you worship that, the Roman emperor is there in the execution machine that the poor guy is nailed onto.
Yeah.
And so they're showing that the bad guy is stronger. And that's the lesson of authoritarian king institutions, to frighten, terrorize their own subjects into obeying them. And so, but in the Bible and everywhere, and in the Torah and in the Quran and everywhere, and in any monotheistic Shaivite, Vaishnavite, Brahmaite, Indian teaching, the gods are always saying, although the omnipotence is ascribed to them and they hold the mighty this and the mighty that, they constantly telling people, you have to be ethical. Totally. If you're not ethical, you're fucked.
Mhm.
And why, you know what I mean? I'm not giving you permission to be a monster. You have to be ethical. And by that teaching, what they are teaching, which is somehow coming through the authoritarian distortions of the great founders, enlightened founders' teaching, by distorting it into making it a suppression and an obedience, frightening presence, rather than a supportive one and encourage you to bring out the best in yourself. And because you have to, because you are in charge of shaping your future. Not, I mean, you do that interacting with other people, including gods, but not no omnipotent one that excuses you from what happens to you, or can actually take care of everything possibly bad that can happen to you. So therefore, you have to do something yourself and become really good yourself. As Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, famously told the Harvard Divinity School after he graduated, he said, "Forget this crap about asking Jesus to do everything and save you from your sins and your stupidity. You have to be Jesus." That's what he's telling you. You have to give yourself to life, and make it good yourself. Meaning you have agency, and I'm not omnipotent, actually, is what it means. Because why would you bother to tell someone to be ethical if you totally control everything they
Right.
did? You have no purpose in doing that. So anyway, I like God nowadays. I don't mind. And
How
I
do
love
you?
Ram Dass. I love Ram Dass.
I love Ram Dass too. I got a picture of him right here, painting.
There he is.
Yep,
He's
he's always
and you know
there.
when I was coming on, just before I was coming on, why I was munching something, because I didn't make my wife, who's not well, her lunch, and I didn't eat anything. And then I was grabbing something. And because amazing thing happened where my friend Rich Martini, you probably never heard of him, but you could do a podcast with him. You could talk with him. He would like talking with you. He's a filmmaker, and he was like a cinematographer in Los Angeles. But he got into this thing. Did you ever read Journey of Souls
Journey of Souls by
or
it's
Destiny of Souls? There's two books by Michael
no.
Newton. Michael
Mm,
Newton.
mm-mm.
He was a California shrink. I think he passed now, but I'm not sure. Retired though a long time ago. And he wrote these books about people remembering previous lives under hypnosis, which he used in therapy, regression therapy. And then he ran into some who would, um, uh, without being asked, would talk about, well, yeah, well, it happened like that in that life with this other person, who I'm still relating to now, which is why they use regression therapy. And then I was reborn in again a different way, and we had a different interaction. And then when someone began remembering a sequence of lives, because you use that kind of therapy to help you overcome problem with someone you're relating to in this life. And we've usually been relating to each other in many previous lives also. So that has a purpose to that therapy, and I like
Do
it.
you think that's a psychological thing, or is that an actual
Well, if someone is a desperate materialist,
yeah.
they can make it psychological. They try to psychology. It's just your brain, your mind. Like we have the dinosaur in our limbic brain. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? We weren't personally dinosaur,
right.
but that's then you can choose one or the other.
But
But
do you personally think there is a habit being carried from life to life?
oh, definitely,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's a third strand of the twisting of the or whatever you call it. Where the DNA,
Yeah.
the spiral,
Hmm.
the third piece of spiral that fits in with the two from the parents that you bring yourself at a super micro level. We call it the indestructible drop in Tantra. In exoteric teachings, they just call it the subtle mental continuum. But they don't make a fuss because people will easily fixate it as a barcode and think they're a fixed thing, just like some sort of weird like puppet or something. They don't want them to do that, so they keep it traditionally they kept it esoteric. But nowadays, in the days of neuroscience, global overheating, and the end of the world, where we're at,
Yeah.
which will not be the end, actually. It'll be the end of a bunch of stupid crap eventually. Right now, it is the end of anything sensible at the very at the
Mm.
moment. But soon it will be the opposite. And there's no more esoteric anyway, basically, pretty much. Everybody has to know everything.
How'd you meet Ram Dass?
How did I meet him?
Yeah, where'd you
Well,
guys
I was
meet?
an undergraduate at Harvard at the time he was Professor Richard Alpert. And he was experimenting with Tim Leary and Ralph Metzner and other people and McClellan, the famous guy McClellan, who was their host sort of at Harvard. And he was in a little building across from 2 Divinity Avenue, where the East Asian language and the Buddhist studies thing is. And they had a funny little, like a Quonset hut on Divinity Avenue there across on the other side. I don't know why they weren't in the William James building, but they weren't. And
And you were already established in Buddhism at this point, right? You already had a dharmic
no,
understanding.
I wasn't. I was interested in it and reading in it, and I was being a total ass, running around, having a lot of fun. And then I got married at 17, 18 or something. I dropped out of high school and never got a high school diploma, but they let me into Harvard anyway because I was a sophomore from advanced standing. I mean, it's a crazy story. I'll tell it someday. But anyway, he had a green Mercedes convertible, and because he was wealthy and he was also tenured, and he would cruise Mass Ave, and he was a party guy. He was really jolly. And then he and Larry and Alpert were doing little teeny dinky psychedelic experiments, like a little bit of psilocybin and putting some guy in a box and to figuring out. But they had we're beginning to discover the Book of the Dead, the Tibetan book of how you die and are reborn, wrongly entitled Book of the Dead. And then my idiotic life, I hardly would go to classes, but I would read poetry and, weird things and Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and Christian mysticism. I was reading all that kind of thing. And I wasn't going to classes, proper classes, but I was still faking my way through. And then I lost an eye. I had an accident where I lost my eye. Which saved my life probably because I used to race motorcycles and cars, both, and I easily killed myself and anybody else by being reckless. And but anyway, luckily in a garage accident, I lost an eye, and then that was like an incredible trip I had, where I suddenly realized that it was all very superficial, all this running around, and there was, death was very much present possibility. And so it was important to make life meaningful. And I became a little bit alienated from my partying thing. And my wife was a little annoyed with me. She was herself psychoanalytically oriented and scared, and then a little bit like frightened of things. But we were having fun. But anyway, then some guy showed up with some mescaline. And because of the eye thing, I immediately, why give me 10 piles? I was just wild. And then I said, the minute I took it, about 20 minutes, 10 minutes in, I said, okay. And that's what freaked out my wife. I said, at the time, I said, I'm going to die now, but it'll be fine. I'm happy to go. No problem. And I clunked over. And then I guess I don't know, in some unspecified amount of time, I suddenly popped up and the world was so exquisite. I couldn't believe the beauty of everything. And it was just amazing. You didn't have to rush off to have fun. It was just fun to be there. I ended up, it wasn't illegal in that time, 61 or 60 something. And it was, I went to Harvard Square to the coffee shop there. And the lady who used to wash the floor, the Irish cleaning lady type of lady, I just embraced her. She was like the Mother Mary or something. She was the most beautiful, whatever. We were a big hug. She was kind of freaked out. But, there weren't a lot of people stoned, and, it wasn't illegal, so she didn't call the cops anyway. Then we got to know Ramdas. So then I got with a bunch of people, and we were high a lot. And then we visited Tim and Ralph and Richard, and then they were talking about set and setting, and then they were a little nervous about us because we were, there was an illicit thing of the students, which later they were blamed for when they were fired. But they weren't doing it because they were just giving a little bit to people in the lab. They were being very responsible scientists, and we were wild, and we would take like 500 micrograms or 1,000 micrograms and go riding on the motorcycles. And then my friend Bruce Bennett, who has since passed, who was one of the ringleaders, and he was also a saxophone player, a great guy, and he later became a super mathematician, but he passed now. But he, as we left after this meeting we had with them, 3 or 4 of us, he said to, I think Richard, he said, or Tim, or I don't remember to whom he said it. He said, do you guys think there could be sort of a spiritual side to the whole thing? Oh, no. He said, no, this is strictly science research. Come on, cut it out. And they didn't really know. We were completely stoned out during the meeting. So, someday the minutes of the Harvard Board of Overseers meeting should be that they were unjust to them for their psychedelic research. And actually, they should get back on doing some psychedelic research because it's part of education, actually. And it's a very important part of it, and they should not have been neglecting it and acting like these guys were some kind of weirdos. Of course, they were behaving a little weirdly once they began to get really stoned themselves. And Richard, transformed a lot. However, and when they then moved to Newton and then to Millbrook after they left Harvard, and they became a rebel kind of group, and he was really high. I mean, he learned a lot doing that, and he changed a lot, but he still kept that a certain kind of, you know, cleverer than thou personality that he had as a Harvard professor, and probably before that, getting educated and achieving, and so on. And he kept that until he met Maharaji. So it proves that you have to add the spirituality no matter what. And it isn't just a matter of a chemical, which Tim never learned that.
Yeah.
Tim remained a dogged materialist right to the very end. And although maybe not right to the very end, actually, that's a different story. I won't launch into that one. But when he died, he might have changed his mind at the last minute. I don't know. And then Ramdas, by Maui years and so forth, after the stroke and everything, I think he genuinely, he became Jesus, he became enlightened, he became Buddha. No, really. I mean, he really transformed in the greatest way, I think. And although I think he had a tiny shock after he died, but it might just be my fantasy. I thought I saw him after he died. He told me once that he wanted to go join the one with his soul. He was going to get out of the difficulties, and he was going to be one with the one. But in this movie, of the life, he kept that metaphor going. You lose it. And after he passed, KD just came from the funeral or whatever it was at Maui to Menla, to our place, our Tibet House place in Phoenicia, New York. And he came there too because we did a New Year's thing. And at one point when we were in a group, and a lot of us, he and I were guiding people to think of sending Ramdas good vibes in the bardo, even though whether we believed it or not didn't matter, just to do it as a group meditation. I kind of saw him in the bardo, and he was happy as a bee because he was out of the broken body that he only stayed in the last years for the benefit of the students, in my opinion, but as a truly saintly thing. But he was surprised that he wasn't just like a vast golden light of God or something. He was still aware of differentiated beings,
Yeah.
what they call in Hinduism, in Vedanta, they call it post-chaturthi, after the fourth state, meaning when the fourth state, like Brahma himself, engages again with other beings who are not as happy as you when you become tattva masi. Then you realize, oh, I'm good, yeah, I'm cool, but what about them?
Yeah. Did you ever have the opportunity to share any of those psychedelics with the lamas or hear of them ever?
Not much, not much. Little bit, because the two most successful ones in America had done acid and had done psychedelics. That's Trungpa and Tartang. They actually learned a deeper thing themselves by getting stoned out, totally. And in the 60s. And then they had their own Tibetan spirituality, and it heightened. And I know of another one who I never had a chance to talk to after he did it, who had originally been the translator for the young Dalai Lama when I first met the Dalai Lama 62 years ago. And he was, and this is a fun story, Tartang Tulku showed up in Dharamsala, and he'd gotten stoned with some, actually the same guy who originally got me stoned, Buddy Eisenberg, whose father worked for the Ford Foundation in Delhi, and who had, actually he had my plastic eye and their shrine, which I had thrown in a lake because it was artificial. I didn't want to wear it. But they swam in there and retrieved it and kept it aesthetic. And I discovered that years later. I didn't know that. I went around with an empty socket for a while in my fanatic days. And anyway, so he had gotten stoned tartan, and he thought it was amazing, and he thought Dalai Lama should get stoned. So he showed up in Dharamsala. I was there trying to be a monk, and I didn't see him that time, but I heard about him. He didn't find me. He was looking for me, but I hid because I didn't want people to know that I knew anything about that at that time. But anyway, what I heard was this. He proposed to the Dalai Lama's office and people, maybe to the Dalai Lama himself, that he should get stoned because it was so far out. Then what I heard was that they were scared to do it, so the translator volunteered to try it out. A guy called Sonam Tabke. He was Sikkimese, and he was kind of maybe a spy, actually, like working for the Indian police, to keep tabs on Dalai Lama so he wouldn't get Nehru in trouble with Mao or something, whatever. It was nonsense things that they were doing. And so after he had a fabulous trip, he said, the next day, but he said he didn't dare recommend it to the Dalai Lama because it was very powerful. And if anything went wrong in the case of Dalai Lama, he didn't want to get executed by the rest of the Tibetans. So he didn't dare recommend it, but he just said he had an amazing time. He really did. So then they never said, and the Holiness never said, and nobody ever said that His Holiness did or didn't do that. So I don't know, but I think he didn't actually.
Yeah.
From my knowledge, no, I think he did not. But then about a month after that, only a month, that translator resigned. I'm sorry, Your Holiness, I can't do this because they had to find another one. And went to Delhi, took up with some Westerners there, I guess the Tartang people, guy who turned on Tartang. And he founded a Nyingma Dzogchen tradition, and he became a guru for the next 30 years.
Yeah, because I'm so curious to how these type of beings would interpret those states. I know you mentioned that those guys thought they were discovering the Book of the Dead through those experiments.
Yes, that's right, but that's a wrong title. I mean, that's a Westerner who made that
Yeah,
title.
it's the Book of
There's
the
no dead
Living.
people. The whole point of the Book of the Dead, or the Book of Natural Liberation by Learning in the Between State, is what the original title is, the great book of that. And what it teaches is nobody stays dead. In other words, there's no place called dead that you go and stay. You know what I mean? It's just a door you go into the next round of embodiment, or you decide, or you achieve, and the ultimate of that is achieving a state where you don't need embodiment because you can draw that full bliss, vitality, everything from reality that embraces you and has always been embracing you. And you don't need a body to enjoy it. But the only thing what draws you back to the embodiment is your old friends, your lovers, your friends, your beloveds, and you realize there's lots more of them than you thought, that they didn't figure it out quite yet, and you could be of help to them. And that's the best way to stay engaged with the beings. And I think that's what Ram Dass has done. And I don't know where he is, and I'm not that psychic at all. But I think he's still around. He'll be back. He'll be back. As the Terminator said, he'll be back.
So what do you think these psychedelic flashes have to do with the bardos? Do you think there is a connection there, or it's just sort of an experiential thing for us to understand it, or is it actually taking us into a bardos, or how do you interpret that?
Okay, well, to explain that properly, I have to say that from the bardo point of view, we are already in the bardo.
This is a bardo that we're in
It is a
currently.
bardo. It's called the life bardo,
Yeah.
and it goes from birth to death. And then in the life bardo, there are more intensive bardos, and one of them is called the dream bardo, between sleep and wake. And then the third one in the life bardo is the a meditation bardo. When we go in deep trance, we kind of leave one way of connecting to our embodiment and we come back to another way. So that's kind of bardo. But even now we're in a bardo, like, talking to Dakota Wint, talking to Bob Thurman, that's a bardo. We're going to be different after and during that. We change during it, and we're going to be different afterwards. It's going to be experience. So these are all bardos, okay?
Yeah.
So within that bardo, you could categorize the psychedelic experience although they're a little bit different ones according to different plants and things, but you could categorize it as a kind of lucid dream bardo, involuntarily lucid. And but it's like a dream because if you're really high, you can't really use your coarse body in the usual way. You better be lying down in some safe place because you're kind of like out of body, So that's like a dream in that sense. And you can't not be lucid because you're just sort of so there. So it's a kind of lucid dream bardo, and it's a kind of meditation bardo since you voluntarily went into it. You didn't just unconsciously rise while deeply asleep. So it totally was appropriate, and it showed that in a way, Richard or Ramdas and Ralph and Tim, in spite of whatever different worldview theories they had at the time, which were scientific and materialistic and so on, they had been very spiritual beings in previous lives for sure. And they sensed that the Tibetan knowledge was something very special, and it did relate to it was like going on a dream trip or going on a trance trip without, and in fact, when they were rebelling against the universe during that phase, and making the psychedelic revolution, they were saying that everybody should do it because it really made life better and different when you realize how amazing it is, and you got outside of your culturally conditioned set of concepts that made you think you already knew everything according to your culture, and that it was always half-assed and life is tough, and don't expect too much, and then maybe entertain some insane theory that after you die, if you belong to the right club, you'll go and be in heaven, or some boring thing, which Mark Twain rightfully said was ridiculous. Why everyone was such a sinner, because heaven was so boring, like an eternal church social, like horrible. So, I mean, really, seriously. So they were totally, I mean, they're totally great beings, and they helped the planet into a great revolution that we're still doing. And this crap that's going on now, which to me has been one series since the 60s, it's been one unending series of total, not anticlimax, but unclimax. Like, yeah, kind of anti, but we use anticlimax to mean that you're already there. So it didn't really become amazing. But this is like worse than where you were before.
Give me an example.
So, well, we're the one place that was originally part of the British Empire, but started the rebellions against the British Empire and came up with the idea of human beings all being equal, and even leading to sort of sensitivity to animals. Eventually, it eventually becomes like that once you're really sensitive to other beings, but also, of course, had this ambivalence because of having had our Benedict Arnolds and been our imperialists ourselves and done genocide on the native people and enslaved black people and so on and so on. So but we at least have the ambivalence more strongly than anywhere else on the planet, and we had democracy gradually. Women got the red vote, and finally the blacks got the vote, then taken away from them again, and now everything is taken away from everybody.
Yeah.
But this is so we all understand that free Tibet, and free us, and free Dakota, and free all the listeners, and free all the yogis, and free all the poets and the artists, and that we've reached the point, the human race has reached the point on this planet, which itself is human, made for us, by us, as this beautiful garden within which to unfold love and joy and bliss, and send that out into the universe, that pulse. Because there are many other planets that are way ahead of us in doing that, and they're happy to have us join.
Is it a symptom? Like, is it a symptom? Like the
Yeah,
current
well, we're at
state
the
is
symptom
this?
now of the threshold of getting out of this horrible delusion that we've been in, that our happiness depends on consuming some other person or animal, or killing somebody, or taking something away from somebody, or whatever,
But
which
in a way, is this kind of us chaining ourselves so that we can become liberated? We have to chain
yeah.
ourselves completely until we snap out of it. Is that what's happening right now?
Well, what's happening right now is we are, well, sort of. It's like the birth canal, you could say, where we've been too complacent in the anteroom of the real paradise level for the planet, and we haven't really recognized it, and we therefore have allowed the more heavily diluted people to completely take over and spread their misery over all of us. And then it will collapse and we will heal them. We'll heal them by taking away their power and letting them turn their attention to healing themselves. You know, like Mar-a-Lago will be the first sanatorium, and Mary Trump will get down there and be the head psychiatrist. It'll be one not flying over the cuckoo's nest. It'll be total cuckoo's nest. Cuckoo's Nest Sanatorium.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And the point is then they can have their fantasies and then there'll be dramas and there'll be psychedelics will be used and other things. And then also the gentleness will happen and they will have healing masseurs and massage therapists and they'll have Amazonian ayahuasca healers in there and they'll be vomiting up all their paranoias and everything. And who knows. And then we have to have some really good sewage system to deal with all the vomited up Big Macs and terrible Coca-Colas with that horrible. By the way, did you know Donald Rumsfeld, how he became wealthy and important?
I do not know. How did he? How did he?
He was the head of the company that made the fake sweetener that is highly carcinogenic,
For
that did all the diet
sodas?
Coke and drinks.
Yeah.
He was head of that company. And the Carter administration banned that product. It's called, the chemical name is not coming to my brain, but you know what it is, and I do too, but I can't remember what it is. Not Neosporin, but it's something like some name like that.
Yeah.
And that's why they could then get rid of the sugar, but then the Carter did because it was highly carcinogenic, way past the threshold. It was very, very unhealthy chemical. And then when Reagan got in, Rumsfeld came in. But his main purpose when he came in was to license his product, which was a poison, seeming to be sweet.
Yeah.
And he became defense secretary and blah blah. I'm sorry, bombing people.
Okay, hold on. Let's step back to mystical experience a little bit because
Yeah.
I'm curious. Have you ever met? Okay, like Ram Dass would speak about Maharaji in such a mysterious kind of sense. These liberated beings that
Yeah.
are, I don't know, maybe they like in Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about like the luminous lights and these beings that have rainbow bodies and stuff. Have you ever
Yeah.
experienced anything like this in actual real
Well,
world?
yes, sort of. I'm still greedy for more, but I have.
Can you share
And,
a little bit about
the
that?
thing is, though, it's very misunderstood. It gets confused. You see, human beings, the way we've been living on this planet is we have a lot of pain. And so we can't imagine that this is nirvana as it is. And if we're really loving about it, it's just rainbow already. Look, I mean, you're wearing a rainbow t-shirt
Yeah.
with a rainbow flag in it, with a dove flying out of the sun in the middle of the flag and a snowy mountain upholding it and so on. I mean, and behind you, the incredible Alex Gray paintings. Alex is a complete medium transmitting things. And then Ram Dass up there looking like a rainbow body. And I mean, we're already all rainbow, all of us. And the point is that but because human spirituality therefore has been predominantly formulated in terms of presenting the opportunity for an escape and the sort of non-dualist vision of it, that it's right here. It has always been here. It's never the world of pain has never been created. It's not here. It's an illusion. It's just a delusion, and that's too unbelievable to us because ouch, something hits me, and so it's something that. So therefore, they make the rainbow body as if it was the big conclusion. And the guy has been sitting around eating rice and dal and chapatis and feeding other people. And then the great thing is going to explode in the rainbow. And then what use is he? The rainbow disappears. You see right through it, and then there's the mountain over there, and then whoops, it's an avalanche, you know. And so the point is that it's been misunderstood, and the rainbow is the life energy. That's what it is, and lust is red, hate is black,
Right.
envy is green, blue is perfection and etc. Dark blue. I mean, in other words, the rainbow is the energy of life. And when we live it in loving, as a loving being, when we know it so well that it's all completely beautiful and therefore we adore all of it, we're addicted to everything, then there's nothing can go wrong because whatever it is, you're addicted to it. So then you can do all the good things, You don't have to be addicted to a destructive one. And that's a process of us learning that. And we're animals that have been every other kinds of animals, and we're humans. We've also been every kind of gods, and we came back down to be this intelligent and yet so vulnerable.
It's like a sweet spot.
Yes, it is right in the middle where then we won't be complacent and we will really push to become love and wisdom simultaneous, incredible. And we're at the threshold of that. That's called Shambhala in the Wheel of Time prophecies. It's called Shambhala, and it is misunderstood at different times. But there's one Hindu guy who has a big ashram near, his name Da somebody. I don't know exactly how it's used to Da Swami or something. Da, his name is like that. But it isn't a Western guy, it's an Indian guy. And he's elderly, has a big ashram near Hyderabad. And we were talking, and I was asking him, because they have a kind of thing where Kalki, Vishnu comes back as Kalki, and there's a big sort of Armageddon. They have that kind of apocalypse idea. Hindus do also, just like the Tibetan one, except did a little bit different final product at the end, like after Jerusalem, after the New Jerusalem, after Shambhala. What's it like? There's maybe a slight difference there. But so I was saying, well, in Hinduism, when is it going to happen? Because I've been wanting it next week ever since the 60s, and it's been freaking me out as far as from the Tibetan side. But the Tibetans say, no, it's 380 more years. And I think, how can the planet last? The global overheating, the poisoning, the wars, the nuclear weapons, hydrogen bombs. How are we going to last for 380 more years in this demented behavior, violent behavior? And so I was going on and on, and he would say, well, I don't know what they say. He was dodging my question, So about when the Hindus expect that, you know what I mean? So then I said, well, okay, I agree. Maybe there's differences also among the Tibetans, I said. But personally, I want it next week, and I expect it next week, and I'm going to keep it up. What about you personally? I then said. So then he pauses. We're talking like this, so I didn't drive down to New Jersey. And he looks at me and says, for me, it's last week. He says, so Vishnu's already back. And David Spangler, did you ever interview him?
No, I've never heard of David Spangler.
You got to find David Spangler.
Okay, I'll check him out.
He's like the Krishnamurti
Oh, wow.
of Christian fundamentalists, Baptists, like mega church people. He was brought up in a mega church pastor family. He was going to be the golden boy, being bred to be a great preacher, and to keep their TV and their Cadillacs flowing from their TV donations and all that. And at the age of 13, he told me when we met much later, he said he protested on one Sunday sermon by one of the uncles in the family, father, brother, who was threatening and terrorizing everybody about how if they weren't on the right side, they would be left behind and they'd be in hell forever and all this kind of thing. So he, as a 13-year-old, said, I don't believe that. That's wrong. You were saying a wrong thing, uncle. Somebody has made a wrong interpretations. A loving God and loving Jesus are not going to have anybody in suffering forever internally. That's wrong. That's wrong. I don't agree with that. And the people who don't follow Jesus are all going to be thrown down into hell after the rapture. That's wrong. So then apparently the uncle said to him, well, who's going to fix it then? You? to suppress his little nephew. And he says, yes, I will then, and marched out of the church. And then later on, so he became a little bit, I guess, of a hippie or something. Then he went to Findhorn. And at Findhorn, he became a channeler medium. And he channeled John. And that book called The New Age was his book as a channel. And he was, Findhorn, the big cabbages, the whole scene there with the plants and the thing. And he was right. And then he withdrew from that too. Then he used to teach a little in California. There was a guy named Brew Joy who had a little cult going and whatever. It was nice, it wasn't bad. I think. I don't know what happened to that later. And he used to teach with that. And then he had a wife and he's got a lot of kids. And they went to Seattle and he became kind of quiet. But he is alive still. I know somehow we had an email exchange, but I haven't seen him in 20 years. I met him during the Lindisfarne time when Bill Thompson had Lindisfarne going. That's where I met him. And so we really connected in the sense that he gave me the teaching, in a way, his example did, that my insisting that Shambhala should be next week or now, as I might change it from the Dao Rinpoche teaching me, or last week, is the right way to go about it. Because that was the message of that book from John, not from David Spangler, but which he channeled, which was that the New Jerusalem, the New Age, is already here, and it's sort of like James Cameron's brilliant genius Ewa from Avatar movies. It's these threads of light in the earth and everywhere, the mushrooms and the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
And that if you're choosing love in life, as Ram Dass did, for example, if you choose love, then you're already standing on the light fiber of the New Jerusalem. Do you know what I mean? And around you, there's people falling through into darkness because they are still fighting and they're
Right.
still selfish and self-centered and whatever, but it will never be eternal. But the point is that the Ewa will catch them too, But the light fibers, And then there's that thing. Did you see Star Trek Discovery?
No, I've never seen any of the
Did
Star
it?
Treks.
Oh my
I
God.
know.
Star Trek Discovery, and I think it's over now, so whatever many seasons, and so I'm not giving anything away, but in Star Trek Discovery, because in that version of the Star Trek world, the millennium or billibium, whatever they put in the reactor, I forgot the name of it. Scotty's down there manipulating it,
Yeah.
Whatever it's called, that element, right? Runs out. It gets all destroyed in the universe, and their ships can't fly, so then everything gets chaotic. And there's some, but then they eventually are able to still do warp drive travel because they discover a way of connecting to the mycelium network
Mm.
throughout the universe that goes across galaxies. Mushrooms. They have a mycelium thing in the transporter beam. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, they say the oldest life we find on Earth that is out of the water is fungi type of creatures. And Terence
Yeah.
McKenna had an idea of panspermia, where like the universe it starts life that way through some kind of cosmic mycelium. I've heard this idea before. Did you ever get to meet Terence McKenna?
What?
Did you ever get to meet Terence McKenna?
No, I knew Dennis, his brother.
Okay.
I never met Terence, but I was so jealous because I actually really love DMT. Actually,
Yeah.
it's the most amazing thing is DMT, and he was just getting more and more over there. So I don't know, DMT is very amazing. And I was professoring away, and I was completely off psychedelics for 50 years by necessity, teaching students. And probably I turned off too many students, who were probably experimenting on coming to my class, and I would say, "Be careful, don't do that." I was doing my job, so they
Yeah.
wouldn't get all derailed. But probably bad, So
You
like
think
everybody had to go underground, the drill.
is it useful
Yeah,
to use those substances?
Michael Pollan saved us all.
Is,
Combination of Michael Pollan and some generals. you know why the generals insisted that they get rid of the Schedule 1 bullshit about psychedelics
Mm.
because they had so many PTSD guys shooting themselves, so many ex-Rambos that they want, and that was the one thing that works.
Yeah.
And also Stan Groff proved in Maryland all through Nixon and post-Nixon illegal and blah, blah, blah. He proved it's the one thing that cures alcoholics. And so it's a very essential
Yeah, I
medicine.
mean, even AA started from the kind of LSD stuff. Bill Anderson, the guy that started AA, was he had this whole 12-step program revealed to him through an LSD experience, which is
Cool.
interesting.
I didn't realize that really. That's
Yeah.
good. Well, that's the point is that in psychedelics, if you're a hardened alcoholic, your liver is going to stand up in the middle of the trip and tell you, fuck off, man. Stop drinking that shit. I don't like it.
Hmm.
I can give you all kinds of juice from my own chemicals. The adrenal glands are ready to produce plenty of of like whatever, adrenochrome, to get you really high.
Yeah.
You don't need that. You don't need this weird downer.
Yeah. Did you ever
And
meet Maharaji?
what?
Did you ever get to meet Maharaji?
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. Another one of my great tragedies. Yeah, I did, but from a slight distance.
Yeah.
I had a Volkswagen bus near Kosani in Almora, and I was one of the few people who had it and who knew Ram Dass and his friends, KD and Surya Das and all of them, and knew them from those days, early 70s. I was already 10 years into the trip by then, but I had this car. So when people would break down, someone had to take them to Nainital, to the museum, to the hospital. So Ram Dass also had a Volkswagen bus. We both did, but sometimes his wasn't working and mine was. So I would come there and park, but for some reason, maybe because they were into being Hindus or something, the Westerners were, they kind of didn't really, oh, this Dalai Lama guy from Almora, maybe he doesn't need to bother you, or you don't need to bother him, or whatever. They never dragged me in to meet Maharaji. And I saw him sitting there with a blankie, surrounded by them, when I would be waiting for them to bring someone who was broken in my Volkswagen there. But they never invited me down to see him. And I myself, maybe I was a little also, well, what's a Hindu? How great can a Hindu be? I was all Lamified.
Yeah.
So I didn't really insist in myself. But I would have been happy to meet him. But didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we didn't personally go clunk. But but in a way I do feel I met him because whenever you really meet Krishna Das,
Mm.
Maharaji hops right out of his heart and jumps into your heart. He does. He's just lurking there in cheerful way. And then every time I hang out with the KD, he tells another story that I never heard of all. And I read the stuff and I've listened to it many years. And some other thing happened, an unbelievable thing. The one the one about Telephone Baba.
Oh,
You know that
the
one?
telephone Baba, the Jesus story?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. The
Yeah.
Shiva and Vishnu story and bringing the doctor back to life.
I don't know. Maybe let me hear it.
Oh, you don't know that?
I don't know. Let's hear
Well,
it. Tell it anyway for maybe someone that hasn't heard it.
Maharaji, and I think in Lucknow or somewhere, he had because he used to go down there. He had a donor who would feed him, and he would stay down there and meet with the lay people sometimes, I think. I may have mixing up the location, so never mind. But anyway, there was a young man who had been, I don't know, maybe just fooling around or something, and Maharaji sternly told him he should be a doctor and he should go to medical school and blah blah. And then when he was a doctor, he should work with poor people and help them because they didn't have proper medical coverage and blah blah. And the guy did that, and he was helping poor people, and he was a disciple of Maharaji. It was great. And then one morning, one day when Maharaji became very agitated because he somehow knew that guy was going to die with a heart attack, and he didn't want him to die. So he then apparently rushed out in the street and found Telephone Baba, who could call up the gods. And he told Telephone Baba, I call Vishnu and tell him to save the doctor right away. And he sent another messenger to tell the doctor to go to the hospital right away. So if he had the heart attack, it would be in the hospital and they could revive him or something. And so he was doing it, and he was very agitated about it. And then Telephone Baba, KD pulls his robe over his head or his sweater or something, to illustrate Telephone Baba pulling his robe over his head. And then apparently he gets on the phone with the gods. That was Telephone Baba's city. And then Telephone Baba keeps telling Maharaji, who's pacing around nervously, Guruji, he's not picking up. He's not picking up. And he still wasn't answering. And so then he's very mad. Maharaji says, that fucking Vishnu, he's just hanging out with Lakshmi. He's ignoring my call, Telephone Baba's call. Okay, call Shiva. He says, so, okay. So then, and then Telephone Baba's called Shiva. And then Shiva picks up. And Telephone Baba says, okay. And he makes the thumbs up to Maharaji. And the way the story goes, at that exact moment, 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever earlier, he had a heart attack and collapsed, luckily, on a gurney outside the hospital. His brother pushed him in, and they're trying to pump him up, but he's not recovering. And the moment he does thumbs up, Shiva picked up the phone and heard the request from Maharaji. Boom, he sits up. That's the story. You never heard that?
No, I never heard that one. That's a
That's
good one. But as a Buddhist, how do you rationalize stories like this? Because
What do you
there's
mean, as a Buddhist, what is a Buddhist? Those guys are Buddhas.
there's no God in Buddhism or these
No,
miracles.
that's wrong. That's a typical misunderstanding. When the Christians discovered Buddhism in India, they had to put, and actually when they beat the shit out of all the Buddhists and conquered them, and these more gentle people, the more violent people coming from England with the horrible food, shepherd's pie was really like eating shoe leather. They to justify that, they had to say something wrong with these people that we beat them up, because we're self-respecting people. They're good. They're great warriors. What's wrong with these people? So, Buddhism is wrong with them. Hinduism, they just sit around and they stare at their navel. So they don't know about God, who made us all come, who helped us conquer the world for Jesus. So they have to find something wrong. And it's not even a religion, Buddhism. That's why it got along so well with Hinduism. There was not a problem because it wasn't replacing anybody. But it did change the status of the Brahmins. That was the worst cardinal sin. That is to say, Brahmin could be reborn as a dog or an untouchable in the next life if they behaved like a shit. Just because they're born from Brahmin, that was a revolution.
Yeah.
But it was peaceful. It wasn't. And it ended up with Hindu bhakti and things like that, where everybody could throw paint on a Brahmin at least a couple times a year, and have their personal link to a beloved deity rather than a frightening one who you have to pacify through the Vedic ritual.
Right.
So everybody got into the revolution as a new, educating people to have less fear of the gods, because the gods themselves have their ups and downs, and they're vast, human, fabulous beings, but then they have the tendency to being a little prideful. But they're gods, for hell.
And these are real qualities of existence, you think? There are real positions that these beings, just like I'm me and you're you, there are qualities to existence where these beings hold these cosmic positions as what we call gods?
Yeah, there are such beings, totally, of course. What do you think a bacteria thinks we are, who's in our own microbiome with a different bunch of DNAs? It thinks we're God.
Yeah, I always thought Buddhism dismissed this idea.
In our gut, and they think we're God. And of course, relatively that's so, but therefore, here's the thing. What really clicked for me, and again from the Flower Ornament Sutra, what they call 10th stage Bodhisattva, who's basically a Buddha. So the difference between a God and a Buddha is that the God has the clear light and the rainbow and everything, and they enjoy it, but they enjoy it in a way where they know there are some other people who don't enjoy it. And they do their best for those other people, but they're just a little bit, there's an isolation between the heavens of pure form, of transgender heavens, where they're just blissed out in every cell, and then those of us down here who are looking for union with something better, and they can't quite. All they can do is create things that help us, but they can't. They're not connected with us as completely. So what happens is that those gods, they stay in that's what's called 10th stage, and then eventually they join the ranks of those who feel they are all the other beings. So they feel the bliss and the rainbow in the hell being, even in every other being, and they therefore make it possible for even the being trapped in an iron prison they made for themselves by being harmful to others, finds even within themselves, inside the iron prison, the spark of love, the spark of bliss, the spark of gentleness, the spark of connectingness. And then that, when they find that in themselves, they can break out of their metal prison that they create. But they create it because of their paranoia and their sense of separateness from the other. So they make a really impenetrable prison, which then crushes them, which is the price of their paranoia, But they find within even the very heart of it, there's like a mushroom, a bud, there's a microgram of bliss. And then that is the only way they can unravel. You can't help liberate someone by force. They can only liberate themselves, right, by recognizing the liberated nature of life, that it connects, that it's free by connecting with other life. That's the whole thing. So my point is that's the difference, and that's why we've been Brahmas. You, Dakota, have been. I have, because our past is beginningless. So we've been gods, and we realized that it was not as cool as being Buddhas. So we became a good Buddha god, and then unfortunately the path to that is through the divine intelligence embodied in the weak animal body, the human one, where the berry can be eaten by a tiger, can be, it's made sick by a virus. It's like very, very vulnerable. So therefore, what moment of flickering awareness we have, we must use for love, and we must know. Did you know that in the old English dictionary, the OED, first meaning of knowledge? Did you ever look it up?
No.
It means to have carnal knowledge of someone. To know someone is to fuck them.
Yeah.
In Old English, no wonder they're so horrible with all their
Okay.
empty stuff, But in a way, that's a high teaching coming out of the subliminal language, like fibers of the humans, which is that if you really know anything, you see its beauty, and then you want it, you love it, you want to connect with it, because everything is beautiful, and at that point, then life becomes an art, where even your cells know that, and you make a body, like you can make a fabulous story, and then if you're competing with other artists to make a better avatar. I mean, that guy he is like incredible. You have seen all those movies, I hope.
Which
Avatar.
ones? Oh yeah, I've seen two of them, I think. There might be a new one I've missed.
The third one is also beautiful, but they're a little annoying. There's something about the third one, and then the fourth one is probably going to be really annoying. They say
James Cameron he's definitely tuned into some dimension.
he is serving humanity in
Yeah,
an
he is.
incredible way. And did you know how, I haven't met him. I've met producers who worked with him. We'll introduce you. Then I just can't get there, to the right place right now, because I so much I wanted to see if my theory is correct. Ewa. Do you know why Ewa? Why does he call it Ewa?
I'm not sure why. Awa is the being, or the
Ewa
connection
is,
where you connect to the thing and you have this.
yeah, the trees and
Yeah,
it's the little
yeah.
things that float there, and it's the fiber lines of light on the thing that's Ewa. Well, it's all spelled backward. awe.
Like awe, like
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, awesome.
yeah, yeah.
I want to just check it with James. And then of course, some are more obvious. You know what the name of the mineral that the weirdos are trying to get with all their machines and their robots?
I can't remember what's it called.
Unobtainium.
Oh, unobtainium. Okay, clever.
Unobtainium. So cool. He's really great. I mean, it's fine. I don't need to meet him because I meet him in his movies. They're so beautiful. Art is a total spiritual practice because great art can only come from the open-hearted being. It cannot come from someone who's doing the art in order to aggrandize themselves. And what they're really saying as they're hopping around on some stage is, look at me. I'm so much better than you. Well, that doesn't really open to the person. It just confirms them that life is a competition. It might inspire them to try to outcompete the person, but it doesn't really move them in the way of when something comes from their heart, where they just give
Yeah,
something, some attunement, some sensitivity, some new sensibility, whatever. Then that hits the other person in the open heart. It's like those chants that are multiphonic, polyphonic, where they can only be made when the vocal cords are such that they kind of openly allow the passage of the wind, of the prana, to go through them and make and resonate them on different levels of the chord. Do you know what I mean? If you're trying purposefully to make that sound, you can't do it.
right.
It just kind of goes. So you kind of, it's almost like vomiting, something where you have to be really open, like a baby can vomit without the slightest bothering them. And then for us, it's we have a huge heat because we have nuts in there.
Mm.
So great art like Taylor Swift. So when Taylor is singing, they are dancing around, and then they all wave their little light, all the people in the 80,000 people, and then because the message is that you have that light yourself. It's more like Dzogchen. And then they wave it and they feel it.
Yeah,
Reality is love. And that is the power. And that's the life force. And so we are blessed already. Any life living thing is totally blessed. So there's no reason to be scared of anything. So, you can defend yourself and you don't need to attack other people and everything is fine. And even if you die, and you give yourself to death, you will be born better. So there's nothing to scare you about. Pain is annoying, and basically you can we're smart enough to arrange everything to minimize pain. And there's a deeper bliss of life force itself that easily overrides pain. This is a signal to avoid this or that and move in this way. So
Mm.
that's what Vajra means. It's a sort of reality view that seized India around the time we had Socrates and Moses and the Deuteronomists and Confucius and people having an axial age all over. And we don't know what they were doing in the Americas. But actually, most likely, they were not sacrificing people on pyramids. They were doing nice things because everybody was having a nicer feeling around 2,500 years ago. It's definitely what's called axial age. So they were probably drinking chocolate. Actually, they were drinking hot chocolate for sure.
Yeah, we get the word chocolate from Nahuatl.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So they were chocolate people. They were not blood drinking, horrible
yeah,
people.
it's true.
So we made them that for propaganda so we could genocide them and steal their continents. 2 continents we did. The Europeans who were really abused from like harsh environment and each other. So it's the Vajra idea. We all have to become fearless of life and love it so much that we see the deepest reality as Vajra. We see goodness as more powerful than violence and evil. And this is really where we are. This is really what the crisis on the planet is these different worldviews that have frightened people, which is in order to get them to obey kings, and to feel someone else pretending to protect you, then they scare you unless you just follow them. It's the authoritarian business of king worship, of this kind of thing, and also male patriarchy and not letting women who more automatically connect with other bodies and other people. They totally do. And
They create bodies.
they have to be equal to us. We have to fit with them where we listen to them and
Yeah.
they guide things actually, and then we can work, and have fun. And so to get out of this being suppressed and being resenting it and then being violent and rough and tough, this is the key thing. So I just want to promote Vajra, Vajra. That's what India invented. They took that thunderbolt of Indra's that was a symbol of a violent weapon, like a bomb, and they turned it into a symbol for compassion and empathy. Because that's the stronger force. And that's what the planet is faced with right now. And we're going to do it. And it's I was just reading something this morning about China, who's supposed to be the big enemy. They're pretending while they're actually killing each other. Only in New York. It's terrible what we're doing here. But meanwhile, China, of course, they're behaving badly, and they're being really bad to Tibetans. I don't forgive them for that. And the Uyghurs, the Muslims, and the Inner Mongolians, Muslims and Buddhists, they're being very bad to them. And the Catholics, they have 100 million Catholics, they're being really bad to them too. So I don't like their fake communist spirituality. But on the other hand, they have built huge solar industry, and they are ready to dish it out really dirt cheap and get rid of us terrible oligarchs. And the oligarch, I told them 30 years ago in conference, I says, guys, get in on the solar stuff when you can still be kings of that industry. Don't stick with selling this crap that is obsolete. No, we can only work upstream. They're too greedy. They wouldn't back down 1 minute and invest in anything different. And now they're going to be those Chinese Teslas, the BYDs, and they are like unbelievably, they're like Cadillacs for $20,000, and they run forever, I mean, it's incredible. So the bad guys who are being the big dictatorship, somehow still, in order to conquer, they were going to provide more freedom to everybody from this horrible environmental destruction. That's really great. I really underestimated John Kerry when he failed as a climate ambassador for the flimsy Biden, poor Joe Biden, who didn't want to admit his problem, allowing Thomas to be a Supreme Court justice and not listening to the lady who told on Thomas, remember? And anyway, he said, well, I've failed with all the Westerners, but China's definitely building out the solar, so it'll be all right. And then I thought he was just making a weak excuse for failing, but he was right. Anyway, so that's all. I just wanted to promote Vajra, and we're starting teacher training Vajra yoga, and we're not against anybody's religion, and we're not converting anybody to any religion. It's not Buddhism, it's yoga.
And where can they learn it? Where are the classes at, the courses?
Courses are going to be in New York and then all over the world, because people will be trained and then they'll teach and they'll open centers. There already are some in different countries because we are open source. We're not making it a franchise where we're the McDonald's, making all the money. It's only by donation type of thing. We're trying to do it like that. When you start, we have to charge something to get it started, but then eventually it'll be by donation, and then everybody can open their own, and then they'll have that same thing. They'll have to charge $10 to pay the rent, and then eventually people will be so grateful that it'll become supported. And that's the way to do it. That's the only way to go nowadays. The only solution to capitalism is generosity. That's the only solution.
Do you have any book of yours that you feel like is the best conclusion? The best conclusion of what you have, your service, your offering?
Well, yes. Well, yes. My best book is two best books. One is just more recently published during COVID. One is called Infinite Life. That's commercially published by I forgot who, and they finally let me do a Audible on it, and because it didn't die or something. And then more recent Hay House one, it also has an Audible, which is called Wisdom is Bliss. But that's just the title, the promotional title. It's the original working title, which really is the secret inner title, is Buddhas Have More Fun.
I like that. I like that one better.
I do too. But they wouldn't let me keep it, and I let it go because I realized that when a Westerner hears the word Buddha, they think automatically Buddhist
Right.
because they only have it classified as a competitive religion. So they think, oh, they're coming to get our Jesus, or they're coming to get our Moses, or whatever it is. And that's totally wrong. When Dalai Lama landed in America and started his worldwide ministry, you could call it, he said, I am only teaching the common human religion of kindness. That was it, not Buddhism. And I went to him as a 22-year-old demanding to be a Buddhist monk. And my earlier coach had told me you're not going to be a Buddhist monk forever, which you're supposed to be when you do that. And it's not your karma in this life, so don't do it formally. You're living like it, that's fine as a student. I wouldn't listen, of course, because I knew better, because I was omniscient teenage. So all teenagers are omniscient. And so he was already telling me, and I'm a one-eyed person, right? So he's saying, other religions are all really good. They're also teaching love and wisdom and everything, and they're doing their best. And then people can abuse them too, of course. But they're still doing they're really good. And you come from one, and you shouldn't be mean about it, and you shouldn't dislike it. And even if you could leave it if you insist, but you don't need to do sort of this. And after all, if you have a man who's only got one leg and he has a nice prosthetic or a crutch, you're not going to sit around and berate him for only having one leg. He says, talking to a one-eyed man, he's telling me.
Mm.
And so I'm not hearing that in those days, and I'm thinking, well, he's just being polite, or it's just his idea, but really you got to be a Buddhist, you know? No, that's wrong. You don't. You have to be a Buddha. You have to blossom. And that doesn't mean that you have to awake only. Yes, you awaken, but you also expand and you become an artist of everything. An artist of being nice to people. You have to find out how to be nice in every possible way. So it's not just awakening. Awakening, yes, to shape up, but then you have to learn everything in the universe. Find out everything, how to help people, how to make them happy, how to cheer them up, how to get Dakota Wint with a great goatee and a mustache like that, wearing students for free to bed, even on top of your earphones. It's so cool. Really. I don't remember your smile being that broad in those days. Dimple and all.
Mm.
Smile dimple. Anyway,
I hope to get.
that's a blessing, you know.
Thank you so much.
Ram Dass is not only a saint, he's a Buddha. Ram Dass is a Buddha. I don't know where he's going to go next, but I'm going to see. I hope I don't die before I can recognize him. In my next life, I will probably be unable to do anything. I don't know what I'll do, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I am. We're all responsible for our next lives. We have to train and learn, and that learning never goes to waste. Therefore, the world it's lifelong learning. Life is all learning. The highest thing in life is learning. Do you know, I thought I invented a word in English, educationalism, to describe sort of Buddhist social policy. You know, in the Buddhist nations, or the nations that had allowed the Buddhist education to join with their local religions, which is what it usually did. And China was like that. And Japan, all their kami, you know, they kept all their kami. But then they joined with the Buddhist thing. And while they did that, they didn't try to conquer anybody. When they took the kami out, then they got a little wild.
How can I come meet you one of these days? I want to see you again.
Anytime, man. Where you live?
I'm in Detroit right now.
That is so wonderful that you're in Detroit.
Yeah, this is where I grew up.
No, but that's really great. You know, have you read, excuse me, did you read Patti Smith's Bread of Angels?
No, I've never heard of Patti Smith.
What?
I know
Really?
I got homework to do after this podcast.
Patti Smith is a rock and roll singer of quite some, she had sort of two careers in rock and roll, which was quite famous early on, around way back, a little bit post Beatles, but right, Beatles were still alive. And then she fell in love with a guy from Detroit. and married him, a guy named Smith. And she grew up in New Jersey and so forth in very, very like somewhat difficult circumstances. And she, uh, but she was determined to be a poet and a writer, and like she was absolutely determined, and she has become great. She's had the French this and that, and she won the Booker Prize and blah blah. I mean, she's a great poet. But then she was a very popular rock and roll singer, but then fell in love with this guy, and he had his own rock and roll group. But then they both gave up, both of them, and moved in a little house in Detroit somewhere, down some alley near the water. Is there a lake near
Yeah,
Detroit?
yeah. Yeah, we have Detroit River
And they had a
here.
beautiful little place near a lake that they somehow managed to get with what they had left over from their rock and roll careers. And then they just lived this simple life, although writing some poems and things like that. And that's where that husband, Smith, is helped. It was a joint thing there. Her famous song, "People Have the Power." People have the power. That great song. She sings in our concerts in Carnegie Hall quite often. She's wonderful. But anyway, she wrote her second memoir. First one was called Just Kids, about her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe. And then she wrote another one that's more global, but not that long. Beautifully written. She's definitely a writer, and beautifully written. But in that, she sings the praises of that little house in Detroit. But then she
Oh,
told me
nice.
since that time that they'd sold that house after he died. Well, naturally she didn't want to stay there. He died too soon, and then she came back, and then Al Ginsberg and other people made her start up rock and roll again, and she's quite very strong actually. And
Where are you at? Are you in New Jersey?
well, right now I'm in my daughter's apartment in New York City
Okay,
because my wife has been having operations, but they were successful, and we're going back to
good.
Woodstock. We're in Woodstock. And you can come up there. Do you know something? I just had the most brilliant idea from someone who's supposed to be an assistant of mine, temporary part-time assistant, but who's a brilliant woman, who just came up with a great idea. We should have some kind of campaign and program and get all kind of players involved about the relationship between capitalism and spirituality. Because there's this whole thing of like, you can become an influencer, you can become a channeler, you can become a medium, you become a guru, you become a corporate coach, blah, blah, blah. And then there's some sort of spirituality thing, and then they're competing with all the old churches and the synagogues and the things, and then what's their relationship to things, some of the Buddhist temples, and you have big elegant Hindu temples that cost fortunes.
Mm.
And this that was okay in the old days. But generosity is key. So, and generosity is the first spiritual major, it's the first place where you develop the ability to kind of let go of the separation of self and other and the fear of the other, is when you give something to the other, especially something that you like and value, you give it. You have to let go. Death is where you give up your body. And so this woman made the most beautiful pitch to me while working for me of a capitalism and spirituality conference, getting everybody together. And one of the people, especially in the context of AI also, do you like the Amodei brother and sister?
I don't know them either. I'm
I
very,
don't either, I don't either know them, but I read a couple of essays they wrote. They're the founders of Claude, Anthropic.
that's one AI system, right?
Yeah,
Claude.
yeah, Anthropic. That's maybe the most powerful one, right? At the moment, they've leaped ahead a little bit, and they're the ones who wouldn't turn it over to headsets
Mm.
because of certain limits about human surveillance and also autonomous killing machines. They were drawing the line there, and then they're being attacked by Trump and etc. But they also said that they are giving away 80% of their capital, at whatever
Yeah,
point.
I mean that's the perfect people to have in a conference like that.
Exactly. And it's a top one. It might be beyond Microsoft
Right. Yeah, yeah, of course.
but
That
it's
is
right up
that's
there.
the new thing.
And it's right up there. And somehow there's this thing about the endless energy needed, which is a mistake, I think. And they're a little hip to that, and they're ready to do it. And I did when you called me this morning, or when I called you this morning, I was listening to my friend Rich Martini, who goes into talking to all these people in the afterlife. Or that is another thing, the book of the dead, there's no dead people. However, human beings, my wife insists that the Tibetans don't have it right in one way, and this Michael Newton guy does, because you and I, the portion of our own spiritual continuum, I mean the Atma, the soul continuum, the selfless soul, never mind, but the soul continuum, a portion of it, we are all beings who are too big to fit into a single human brain. So we exist in other planes simultaneously. So when we go back to Bardo, between state, we're kind of in a place where we have also there, we can stay there and incarnate, if you follow me.
Yeah.
And in some respect, we're still there, and all our past forms are still there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like our brain is an instrument that transmits this vast experience that we
Yeah.
have of life.
It's like quantum physics. They talk about the superposition, and then when it takes when an observer is there, it takes a fixed form.
Yes, yes, exactly. So we're like a rainbow, right? Has many strands, like optical fibers in the rainbow, and then there's a little round bead at the end of the one. So we're like a little round bead at the end of a big bunch of fibers.
Hmm.
And everybody is a Buddha, actually, because that's the way to have the most fun.
Yeah,
And
Buddhists have the most fun.
then every being wants the most fun. Because why? Fun is derided in authoritarian societies because they automatically assume fun is selfish and it's zero sum and it's harming somebody else. But real fun is when the other resonates completely with you and you get to enjoy theirs with yours. And when you multiply that infinitely, you get infinite fun. And that's the only way you're having every fun, more than just whatever your own sensitivity is. And that's why the gods prefer to be Buddhas. And they show that, actually. They don't mind people seeing that. And that's what Jesus was trying to tell them. Buddha, Moses, eye for an eye is a really nice thing. It means don't take their leg off just because you lost an eye. You know what I mean? The eye for an eye in the old tribal days is like a really it's a big altruistic thing. Just an eye. What did he just punch you once? Okay, punch him just once. Do you know what I mean? Don't kill him. That's really everywhere. It's the same compassion and thing. So anyway, listen, I'm sorry. I don't want to hold you. You can make
No,
two of them.
it's okay. I love it. I'm happy to any time I get with
I
you.
make two of them. Make two of them. Because I do want to promote. I want to promote this open source. Tibet is open source. Why we want on your students for free. Yesterday, I gave a speech to 1,000 Tibetans here, outside in front of the UN in the Ralph Bunche Plaza there. There's a thing on 46th Street, 46th, 47th Street. That's like a kind of a little bit of a garden block. And Japan Society's nearby, and there's some UN missions kind of around in the buildings. And Trump is greedily building them paper. I mean, that kind of company is building tall things, making it more unpleasant. But anyway, we've been doing that since the 1970s about free Tibet and so on. And I was trying to explain to them, but I explained two things. One, I was upset that there's mostly only Tibetans there, because when we started, there were more pinkos. They were very happy when I informed them one of my slogans, there's no whiteys. They're pinks. All people who think they're white are actually pink. And they all are looking for a tan in Maui, if possible. So this thing about white is fake. So they can only be allowed to run around demanding pink supremacy. I think that might quiet it down a little. Anyway, the Tibetans enjoy that. But the point is, that's open source. They didn't, they had one boundary because they had wars with China like 1,400 years ago, which they sometimes won because they were very tough before they got into Buddhism, because they were nomads. Nomads tend to be a little tougher than your agricultural people, a little bit. And they were, the Vedic people, whereas the nomad. And because they have to wrangle steers, and yaks and things, so they kind of tend to be, the women also very Amazonian, in the other meaning of Amazon. And so you are wearing that after 75 years of total occupation and ethnocidal, if not genocidal, behavior by the Chinese Communist Party in Tibet, in order to have that territory to loom over India and
Yeah.
Persia and over all of Eurasia. Really, that's the roof of Eurasia, And the water all flows down out of the melting glaciers from there. And if you melt them all, they're all doomed. All the people in the downstream.
Right.
They wanted to conquer that. And so, but Tibet itself was open source, and the water flowed down from these peaks and the newest mountains, on the planet, the Indian plate going under the Eurasian plate, etc. I do know all that story. So the fact that people still want to see it saved, some people, and that students will form that kind of body, it's really important. The new system is that we don't kill each other, we have a dialogue about it, which means world democracy, of course, and a little bit chaos and inefficiency. So it's not because governments are not for efficiency, they're for service, as my son informed me, and he rightly told me that. And he got me to stop translating Bhagavan as Lord. He says, BS, what are you? Some people want to be Buddha so they can be landlords? What? Why do you keep calling Bhagavan Lord? Bhagavan means lucky guy. Bhaga means fortune. So Bhagavan means one who's fortunate. Doesn't mean some lord. Lords are not lucky. Lords are like paranoid. They have to have police to collect their rent.
That's true.
People hate them. So that's no fun. So he got me, my son did. He got me to change that. And I never translate Bhagavan as Lord anymore. Blessed One was all right, actually, as it turns out. And the old meaning of Blessed One, that was quite nice. And Lucky One is the best, So
Where do you
lucky,
where do you usually stay? Where do you live usually?
Woodstock.
Woodstock is
Yeah, I built my own house with no mortgage in
nice.
Woodstock.
I would love to come visit one day.
Please do anytime. You've been massively welcome.
Thank
And
you.
I believe you would be massively important to help us with this conference about
Oh, absolutely. I'll help you with anything you
capitalism and
need.
spirituality in the
You just
day of AI,
you just tell me what you need and I'll do it.
because they are facing the fact that this AI is going to make a lot of unemployed people who think
Yeah.
that their only worth is how much work they do. And then we're going to have a planet full of artists.
What are the spiritual implications?
Exactly. Well, the spiritual implications, they have to learn to redefine spirituality in a loving way rather than an obedience way, because the obedience way opens the door for cults and even political cults like Nazism, Tsarism, King Georgeism, huge, like I was in London in November, and that one thing to me was a massive teaching. Was a homeless lady on the street with a bag and some kind of wagon thing, like one of those folding wagon things with her possessions in it, and sitting there on the street corner, and yet had her phone and was looking at the phone totally. And then I realized that that was around the time, I think, that King Charles invited Trump and a lot of oligarchs, AI and tech bro oligarchs, and I think Musk was stalking around there and so on. And so this lady, who clearly had not had much food, but she had some probably, and she had some thrown away sandwich and some food. I'm sure she was managing, but she was sitting there looking at the menu in Buckingham Palace on the phone. So then the old king game is no longer doable when everybody knows everything. It won't work. It's all perfect. And Shambhala has the same idea. It doesn't mean everybody's going to be a Buddhist, but that everybody will be enlightened, yes. More enlightened enough to love their neighbor as themselves. Eye for an eye is enough, et cetera, or even less than an eye. You know, This is more like it, So this is, I think we're on the brink of this, actually, the planet. I actually think so.
Yeah, I feel like everyone feels something.
It's something amazing. And some of those astrophysical, spiritually channeling type of people, they say that coming into a different zone in the galaxy where they expect planets to be radiating and sending out vibes that are more positive and not so much violence and suffering, and sending out very, very celestial and beautiful vibes, and they're impatient for us to join that circle and be our node in the holographic universe, where in the Buddhist sutras there are zillions of planets with better swimming pools, better plumbing, better sewage,
What
better
are the
art.
planets? What do you think the planets even are? Are the planets beings themselves? And just like you were talking
Yes,
earlier,
yes,
how we
yes,
have
they are.
little,
Yes, yes,
we
they
got little
are.
microbes inside of us. Are we the microbes of a super being, which we call Earth?
Yes, yes, in a way. Well, but not in a way where then one is superior to the other, in the sense that each one's consciousness has the potential of all of them. However, that was another Flower Ornament Sutra moment that I had, where I was following in one of the early sutras, one bodhisattva who tended to be born as female, and who was constantly, her obsession and her bodhisattva practice was, like Maharaji, was feeding people. And she only wanted to feed people and feed people. And life after life, she would feed, and she would be a queen of some empire, so she could feed everybody. And she was doing this and doing that. And then it was open-ended. Where did she go from having been the world emperor's wife, who could feed everybody on the planet, or whatever the sphere of influence of the Chakravarti Raja, what they call wheel-turning emperor. And then I realized, obviously, the place to go for a person with that, a bodhisattva with that kind of vow, would be to manifest themselves as a planet, as a human, as an Earth type of planet, where you could feed billions of
Yeah.
sentient beings for billions of years, as long as they didn't fuck it up too much, by polluting it and whatever, and then you'd be an automatic soup kitchen, a giant vast soup kitchen, and a lot of other animals feeding this and that, and it's like one huge festival and banquet of life. And so you'd become a planet, and that's Gaia, Prithvi. And when Buddha attained enlightenment under the tree, the hint is in the story there. When he attained enlightenment under the tree, he touched the earth. First thing he did, he reached down and touched the earth. And it's interpreted in the context of a story of calling. Yes, come in. Calling a story. I think they want me somehow. Yes, hi dear. This is Dakota. This is my guru.
Hello, hello, hello.
This is Nena. Yeah, you want me to do something?
Yes, I do.
I'll be fine.
Okay, we're almost done.
And I've been playing mom lately, which has been a great privilege because she's been having a few serious nerve operations
Yeah,
to get back to where she's not feeling pain.
good.
And so they're all working, and this is going to be new spring for our little family. So I'm
Good.
very, very happy about it. But I have to go do something now. Anyway, I'm sorry to hold you over time.
No, I love it. I loved
By
it.
all means, cut it up in several things. And
Okay.
let's promote this, and you're the first person I shared this idea with, and I'm requesting you to be a full partner, which means don't do what I ask you. You also tell me what to do.
Okay.
And that's the real partnership. And we do this thing of capitalism and spirituality. I think it'd be really valuable. And then we'll get it'll be really fun, I think.
How do you say Psychedelic?
Psychedelic.
Dr. Bob Thurman, thanks so much. I hope to see
Okay,
you
man.
soon, and I hope we
So
get to
fun.
talk soon. I'm here whenever you need me.
Oh, thank you, Dakota. And I'm here for you too. Anything
Thank
you
you
need,
so
let me
much.
know, okay?
Okay.
Okay, all the best.
Okay, all the
Okay,
best to you too. I'm sending infinite love.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye, 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 bye.
Hey, my friends, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And it's sad. Life is sad. Life is beautiful. It is everything. It is the whole spectrum, and that's what makes it meaningful. And it's even meaningless, and that's what makes it meaningful too. And someday I will also be the friend that died, and hopefully one of you will say some nice words about me and keep me immortalized in the cloud of digitalized consciousness. So this is the Flowerhead Show. This is the Be Here Now Network. Come join the strange gravity of the Be Here Nowosphere. Join this dance, this Leela of I don't know what's happening. It's something's happening. And I invite you to join the happening here on the Be Here Now Network, here in the Dakota of Earth dimension. Go to my YouTube channel, Dakota of Earth, click subscribe to the Be Here Now Network. You can go to my website, dakotaoferarth.com, and then my email is there. I don't know what's happening, but here we are. It's happening. See ya.